I will be showing you how to go from this to this. I will be comparing and benchmarking each major setting for graphics and performance differences so you can better optimize the game for your system, and I will be giving you my optimized settings as well. I would like to point out that this game has quite a lot of useless filler graphics options, and depending on the graphics setting, some of these 6 options don't do anything at all. They are just there to ensure they all fit the same naming scheme. Now let's look at the CPU performance. Using CPU intensive settings, I was genuinely surprised by just how good the CPU performance was. It's definitely better than Battlefield 2042's, but Battlefield does have a larger scale. The R5 3600X consistently averaged around 120 FPS, and the lowest it dipped to was around 100 FPS, with the 1% lows around 60 FPS at worst. This is a great start so far, and it definitely gets my seal of approval for CPU performance. Now let's get into the settings, starting with scope magnification, which emulates how a scope works in real life. First off, enabling it gives you a clear competitive disadvantage around the edges of the scope by hiding players around its peripheral vision. Secondly, it's obviously very taxing on the GPU. It even comes with a warning when you enable it. I found that the higher the scope magnification is, the more it drops FPS. It can even halve FPS in some instances. Definitely keep it turned off. The anti-aliasing setting seems to be broken and doesn't look any different. It's supposed to enable temporal anti-aliasing, but it looks the same either way. I found that the weapon motion blur setting only worked when firing the weapon and not when sprinting or any other weapon movements, for example. It doesn't really affect performance, so it's up to you if you want to turn it on. The reflections setting is currently broken, as none of the 6 options seem to make any difference to image quality or performance. Therefore, I don't currently have a recommendation for it. For texture filtering, the medium and high options don't do anything over low, while ultra is an improvement, and extreme is also an improvement, but ultimate seems to just be another empty filler option. Go with extreme or ultimate, as they are actually the same. Turning on ambient occlusion to medium does as you would expect. High does nothing, and ultra seems to have less occlusion bleed. Extreme also does nothing, and ultimate seems to have a slightly stronger intensity. The difference across the options is minimal, while the performance cost is not. Therefore, I recommend medium for the best balance. For the particles and distortion settings, I apologize because I wasn't able to properly test them given the nature of this game and the settings themselves, and I didn't see any image quality or performance differences either, so they remain untested. For scene details, they gradually increase the amount and view distance of environmental details. The high and ultimate options don't do anything, and performance is the same across all options. Keep it on extreme or ultimate. The scene view distance controls the level of detail of objects, including trees. The medium, high, and ultra options don't do anything, and performance noticeably decreases on ultimate, while it's only a small drop on extreme. so I recommend extreme for the best balance. The depth of field setting adds depth of field when aiming a weapon. It's mostly a personal preference setting, but it does have a small performance impact when aiming, which is why for you tryhards, I recommend to turn it off for the best competitive based edge, as every frame counts when an enemy is between your sights. The global illumination setting is currently broken and none of the 6 options look or perform any differently. The shaders setting is vital to the overall graphical quality of the game. It controls many things, some of which are vegetation animation, terrain and environment quality, textural detail, water quality, among others. Medium doesn't do anything, while extreme and ultimate either also don't do anything or what they do is very subtle. As for performance, all options other than low perform the same, so use ultimate. The texture setting looks to also be broken and doesn't make any difference to texture quality or VRAM consumption. The streaming setting seems to control road markings and environmental clutter. Medium and high don't do anything, while anything over ultra adds more details. Performance seems to not be affected either, so I recommend ultimate. The shadows setting mainly controls your character shadow quality. Medium and high don't do anything, while ultra and above keep improving shadow quality, with ultimate adjusting shadow softness, which can be easily observed on the left pillar's shadow. Performance is noticeably affected with each meaningful option. Therefore, I recommend ultra for the best balance. For the shadow map setting, it gradually improves general shadow quality. High and ultra don't do anything, and each meaningful option has a very small performance impact, while the ultimate setting has the largest. I recommend extreme for the best balance. For post-processing, going from low to medium does nothing. High adds bloom, ultra adds chromatic aberration. Extreme seems to look ever so slightly brighter, and ultimately does nothing. Performance is negligible across all options, so I recommend to stick with extreme or ultimate, or drop it to high if you don't like chromatic aberration. Volumetric fog is disabled on low, while each step higher gradually increases its quality. It only starts to look acceptable on extreme and ultimate, but ultimate seems to have a noticeable performance impact. Therefore, my recommended setting is extreme. The animation setting seems to look and perform the same across all options. I didn't see any difference in tree or player animations specifically. Maybe this setting is broken or its effect is subtle. Keep it on ultimate. For upscaling, in stills, going from native to TSR quality certainly looks more stable, and so does XeSS Ultra quality, but FSR2 quality has some trouble in this title, and DLSS quality looks stable as well, while gaining the most FPS out of all options. But what about image quality in motion? Well, native has some trouble here. TSR looks like it's having a nervous breakdown. XeSS is a blurry mess. FSR2 has severe trailing issues, while DLSS quality looks absolutely clear in motion, almost perfect, and this is why it's my recommended setting. For benchmarking, I have tested in a 64-player AI match for consistency purposes, and from the results, we can see that excluding upscaling, the game is barely scalable, and the filler graphics options alongside their stupidly exaggerated names are very deceiving, in that it makes it look like the game can scale graphics and therefore performance widely, going from low settings to ultimate. But in reality, even with the optimized settings, in an actual match, the improvements become minuscule. But on the bright side, the game already runs at a high base frame rate, and CPU performance has lots of headroom. What do you guys think?